What's up, everyone? Pete Pardo here from Sea of Tranquility. Welcome to another episode of Overlooked and Underappreciated Live Albums. This is the series that we're going to be doing over the next couple of months, and basically just talking about and highlighting some live albums that need your attention. Now, we're not talking about the mega live albums, right? We all know what those are: Strangers in the Night, Unleashed in the East, and Live at the Fillmore, and all the ones that everybody talks about that gets all the acclaim. We know those are great. They're great for a reason. We know why everybody always cites those as the greatest live albums of all time. But they're not the only really good live albums, right? There's lots of others that maybe had a limited release run or came out many years after the band's heyday, but maybe just as good as that very, very popular live album. Or in some instances, it might be a band who's released a ton of live albums. Maybe one or two get all the notice. They've had all the great reviews. Everybody talks about them, but they have other ones that are really, really good as well. That's kind of where we're going at. And even like some of the more unknown bands, or lesser known bands, I should say, that have really good live albums as well. That's the ones we're going after. I've seen in previous episodes, some of you were naming some of those, the really big live albums. It's like, well, we know those are great, right? It's not the ones we're talking about, right? We're talking about the ones that maybe some people have never heard before, right? So, or the ones that don't get all the mention all the time. So each episode we do 10. Right, I've got another 10 for you here today. Again, this is going to cross multiple genres, so it could be classic rock, hard rock, metal, prog, jazz, fusion, blues, right? It could be whatever, right? They're all open for this, maybe pop as well. It's all open for discussion. But to me, I'm kind of going with the ones that don't often get mentioned much, or maybe some of you may have never listened to before, right? So we're going to start off with, right off the bat, we're going to go to the UK. This is a really, really great band that's been around for a long, long time. And they've got a few live albums. Most folks here in North America don't really know these guys. Or I mean, if you do, that's cool. I'm glad you do. But they were much, much bigger over in their homeland in the UK. And I think they were absolutely terrific band. And I think their first ever live album is one that should be mentioned by a lot of people and should be listened to by a lot of people, whether you know them or not. The band is Magnum. The album is Marauder. Okay. Very cool live album that came out in, early 80s. I forget the exact date that it came out in, 1983, I think it was, something like that. And you get a good 8 songs on the original live album, so this wasn't a double. And then if you get the CD reissue, you get a whole bunch of other additional live tracks. So a really good snapshot of where Bob Catley and the band were right around this time. If you haven't listened to Magnum, they're just, how do you describe Magnum? A very melodic rock band that has bits of hard rock, little bits of prog, especially early on, lots of pop melodies and catchy hooks and things like that. You probably can call them a melodic rock band, right? But they're a little bit more adventurous than that. Really, really good stuff. Great vocals, great guitars and keys, memorable songs. The early stuff, like I said, is a little bit more on the hard rock and prog end. Think kind of like Deep Purple, Uriah Heap. But then over the years, they've just morphed into a great band that just so listenable and so epic sounding. And Marauder by Magnum is my first choice. From them, we're going to stay in the UK. Okay, this is a band who the live album that everybody always points to is their 1973 live album, All in Black, right? Uriah Heap, right? It's great. Legendary live album. Love it. However, they have a live album made up of recordings from 1979 called Live in Europe 1979 from Uriah Heap. This, of course, is the John Lawton era of the band. John Lawton replaced David Byron in Uriah Heap for a few albums, and this is recordings from the last tour with John Lawton and the band. You got a lot of the seminal Heap tracks on here, like Easy Living, Look at Yourself, Lady in Black, July Morning's on here. You got Free Gypsies on here, but then you have other stuff from the Lawton era, like I'm Alive and Woman of the Night and Fallen in Love and Free Me and Free and Easy. Pretty good recording. This came out in Castle Communications probably, I would say in the late 80s, maybe early 90s. I don't remember exactly when I got this, but so this did not come out when that lineup was together. This was released later on. So, and 1987, okay, was released on Castle Communications. So basically, right around the same time that Bernie Shaw and Phil Lanzon joined the band, they kind of unearthed this, right? I guess there was a renewed interest in Uriah Heap with the new lineup at the time. So, but yeah, really, really good stuff. If you've never heard this one, whether you can still get this, I have no idea. I've had it forever, but really, really good. Going to stay in the UK, right? For a very cool band that now lives here in the States, right? They also spent lots of time in Germany, a prog band from the early 70s. These recordings are from 1973 and 74. The band is Nectar. Sunday Night at the London Roundhouse. Very cool 70s progressive rock band that also had lots of psychedelic elements as well as some hard rock, right? Lots of cool keyboards, Hammond organ, some synths, right, and Mellotron at times, big heavy guitar riffs, lots of guitar and keyboard freakouts and sound effects, and they had a great light show back in the day, right? Still part of their set as well. And you get 2 discs here on this particular issue here. You get songs like Kings of Twilight, Desolation Valley, A Day in the Life of the Preacher, Cast Your Fate. You get the Remember the Future Part 1 and Part 2, along as well as some other things here and there. A excellent snapshot of Nectar in the early 70s, pretty much at the height of their powers, right? So that's very, very good as well. All right, from there, another band. I kind of like always picking a band that has a live album that everybody talks about, but yet has maybe another one or two that people just often forget about, that you really should not forget about, and maybe you should discover if you haven't listened to it already, right? So Grand Funk Railroad, everybody talks about the Grand Funk live album, right, which is absolutely terrific. One of my favorite live albums from the 70s. It's raucous, it's rocking, it's heavy, it's wild, it's raw, in your face. Love it. However, they released another one a few years later that is much more refined, right? Still rocks, but contains a lot of their songs that they released after they became a 4-piece band, right? With Craig Frost on keyboards. So that, of course, is Grand Funk Railroad, Caught in the Act. So this is the more polished Grand Funk Railroad, but still really, really rocking. Great stuff on here. You know, you got foot stomping music, you got rock and roll soul, I'm Your Captain, Closer to Home, Heartbreakers on here, Some Kind of Wonderful, Shining On, The Locomotion's on here, Black Licorice, The Railroad, We're an American Band, TNUC, Inside Looking At, and their cover of Gimme Shelter by the Rolling Stones. This is a really, really good, whereas the earlier live album is raw and unpolished and ferocious. This is more polished, still rocking, but definitely this is the more sophisticated Grand Funk Railroad, I guess, but very, very good recording here. This is a really, really good live album. I dig it quite a bit, and that's, of course, the 4-piece of Grand Funk Railroad. All right, now we're going to go to Germany, a really great German band that I love in the prog genre. The band is Eloy Live. You know, I've often heard my good friend Ken Golden say this is one of the most underappreciated live albums of the 70s, and I would tend to agree there. Awesome stuff here. You got Frank Bornemann, lead guitar and vocals. You know, he's always the star of the show. There's great keyboards and synthesizers on this album. You get some excellent tracks here. Again, borrowing from many of their highlighted albums from the 70s. Poseidon's Creations on here. You got the Sun Song, Dance and Doubt and Fear is on here. Gliding to Light and Knowledge. Atlantis, Agony at June 5th is on here. Big epic. I mean, it's just all sorts of 13 p.m. All sorts of great stuff on here. Again, lots of cool, Eloy, this cool blend of 70s progressive rock, space rock, and some hard rock all kind of mixed together. Really good stuff. Lots of extended guitar and keyboard solos and things. So definitely don't miss that one if you have not heard it. We're going to go all the way over to a great Dutch band, Focus at the Rainbow. Killer live album, you know. Jan Ackerman and Thies van Leer, awesome stuff here. You get a good selection of some of their most memorable songs from their few albums that they released before this came out. You got Focus 3 is on here, Answers and Questions. You got Focus 2, Eruption is on here. Eruption is much more truncated, right? It's like a shorter version of Eruption. It's like 8 and change. Hocus Pocus is on here. Sylvia, their cool little pop singles on here. And then, of course, you got Hocus Pocus Reprise, right? So you get all the yodeling and all that wonderful stuff and some face-melting guitar playing from Jan Ackerman. Very cool live prog album, Focus, Live at the Rainbow. And then, so this one, I feel very strongly about this one because, quite frankly, this live album has a older sibling, which everybody cites as their favorite live album from this band. And I would argue that I think I like this one even more. The band is Wishbone Ash. Live Dates is the album that everybody talks about because it's got the original lineup, and I get it. It's great. However, I like Wishbone Ash Live Dates 2 just a little bit more. So this, of course, this is the Andy Powell on guitars and vocals. You got Laurie Weisfield, right, on guitars and vocals. So Laurie replaced Ted Turner on guitars, Martin Turner bass guitar and lead vocals, and Steve Upton on drums. And I would say this album, to me, is better recorded. The playing is off the charts here. You get a lot of cool songs from those albums with Laurie on co-lead guitar. You know, what's on Living Proof is on here, Runaways on here, Helpless, FUBB. You get some early classics as well. The Way of the World is terrific on here. You got Persephone, the No Easy Road, Time Was. So a nice mix of songs from all the albums they did up to that point. Really, really terrific stuff. I really like this album. And man, you love tasty twin guitar solos all over the place here. Fantastic stuff. All right. Southern rock? Yes, indeed. Why not? So the Marshall Tucker Band, sadly enough, did not have in the 70s during their heyday a definitive live album, right? They had one studio, half live album, which a lot of bands did at that time. They had that, but no definitive, like either single live album or a double live album at the time. However, years later, when did this come out? In early 2000s, I'm thinking. I don't even remember exactly when this came out. Yeah, not that long ago. They released Shout, and Ramblin' Records released Stompin' Room Only. Marshall Tucker Band, Greatest Hits Live, 1974 and 1976, so containing a whole bunch of recordings from that 2-year period, arguably some of the bigger years in the career of the Marshall Tucker Band, and this is absolutely smoking. If you love Toy Caldwell's guitar playing, all over the place here, him playing that honkin' Gibson Les Paul and just absolutely tearing it up. And you got Long Hard Riders on here, This Old Cowboy, Fire on the Mountain. To me, some of the definitive versions, I mean, I love the studio versions, but some of the definitive versions of these songs are on this recording here. Searching for a Rainbow's on here, Take the Highway's on here, Rock's on here, Can't You See is on here, Blue Ridge Mountain Sky, The Thrill Is Gone, Ramblin', 24 Hours at a Time, and Hillbilly Band. So literally, this is the greatest hits of the Marshall Tucker Band, but all ferocious live versions. Doug Gray sounds great on vocals. Like I said, Toy and Troy Caldwell are both, did I say Toy and Troy? Troy Caldwell and Toy Caldwell, right? I always get their names are so similar, but yeah, the Caldwell brothers are great on here. So yeah, that's Stompin' Room Only, the Greatest Hits Live, 1974-76 from the Marshall Tucker Band. So from there, we're going to go to one of my favorite guitar players of all time, who has a whole bunch of live albums. And I had a lot of people asking, Pete, I hope you're going to mention this album during this series. And of course I was going to mention this. So again, if you know me, you know I love this album. I've talked about this live album a lot, but most people have no idea of this live album and probably only partly even know this guitar player. But those who know his greatness, and he's no longer with us. The guy is Gary Moore. The album is We Want More. Like I said, he's got a bunch of really good live albums. This will always be my favorite. And I never understood why this wasn't an enormous live album. I guess because here it was only released as an import in this country when it first came out. At least that's how I bought it. Not sure if they ever domestically released it. But man, if you're into Gary Moore's rockin', hard rockin', and quite metallic 80s period, this is where it's at. Some incredible guitar playing. And again, some just absolutely killer versions of some of these songs. You got Murder in the Skies, his great take on Shapes of Things, Victims of the Future's on here, Cold Hearted, End of the World, which is just crushing on here. You got Back on the Streets, So Far Away, a very dreamy version of Empty Rooms is on here. You got Don't Take Me for a Loser, Rockin' and Rollin', and then a bonus track, you get the live version of The Great Parisian Walkways, which is just absolutely amazing. So yeah, incredible stuff. And last but not least, so this band, again, has a very, very famous live album recorded at the Fillmore East in New York City. Okay, that's the one everybody talks about. It's one of the great live albums of the 70s. We get it. I love it. However, I happen to think that their King Biscuit Flower Hour live album by Humble Pie could be just as good, if not better. As much as I love the Fillmore recording and live album, you get a lot of, some of the songs are really long, and you get a lot of like in between banter with the crowd, and again, the performances are ferocious. I mean, it's great. I don't doubt its greatness because I love it. Right, it kind of culminates the end of the Peter Frampton era. Here, this is the Clem Clemson era. I just find that this album is a little bit tighter. You get the more shorter, more concise hard rocking songs on here, and it's just, Come On Everybody's on here. You get Stone Cold Fever is on here, 30 Days in the Hole, Road Runner, Hallelujah, I Love You, I Don't Need No Doctor, Hot and Nasty. I mean, this has just got nasty guitar playing all over the place from Mr. Marriott and Mr. Clemson. You get the great vocals from Steve Marriott, one of the all-time greats, right? So this to me is a killer live album that I cannot recommend highly enough if you've never heard this. I mean, there's so many great King Biscuit Flower Hour live albums. I mean, they were just kind of releasing them haphazardly all throughout the 80s and the early 90s, and to a lot of people, they never even got the chance to hear any of this stuff. And I think that a lot of these King Biscuit recordings are as good, if not better, than some of the official great live albums by some of these bands that got released earlier on. So don't sleep on these King Biscuit Flower Hour live albums, people. If you can get your hands on any of them, there's a whole bunch of them. I have a bunch. I don't have all of them. There's tons of them, but every one that I've ever heard has been quite good and well worth your attention. So there you have it. So got a little humble pie action here. Gary Moore, Marshall Tucker Band, Wishbone Ash, Focus, Eloy, Grand Funk Railroad, Nectar, Uriah Heap, and Magnum. Right, so those are your 10 for today. Overlooked and underappreciated live albums, right? We got lots more to come. I have a huge list of things. So this series will be taking us throughout the summer, I would imagine. So many great live albums. I could talk about live albums all day. So anyway, thanks for watching. Visit us on the web at www.seaoftranquility.org. We're on Facebook, we're on YouTube, all together, all the damn time. Please subscribe if you haven't already, and click on that notification bell so you get alert of all of our content as it posts. And please do hit the like button before you leave. Also down below, we've got the links to our Ko-Fi page for channel donations, as well as our merch page. So thanks for everything, and we'll see you tonight on the Monsters Den. We've also got a rant coming up tonight about the whole Motley Crue McMars situation. So join us for that as well. And then tomorrow morning at the Funhouse with Martin Popoff, and ranking the albums over the weekend on Sunday. So thanks, everybody. I am Pete Pardo. Enjoy the rest of your day. See you soon. Bye-bye.